and welcome. I would like to call the Monday, October 28th, 2024 Blue Springs Planning Commission meeting to order. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and could I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Pumphrey,
Present.
Commissioner Graham,
Present.
Commissioner Stokenberry,
Present.
Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Present.
Commissioner Cradoff,
Present.
Commissioner Ingersoll, Commissioner Howe, Chairperson Henning.
Here. Thank you, and I welcome everyone to this meeting this evening and those from watching at home. Tonight's agenda consists of item 1A, the minutes from the October 14th meeting. Items 2, 3, and 4 are the rezoning, plan development concept plan, and preliminary plat for the links at Adams Point. Items 5 and 6 is announcements and adjournment. At this time, I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda for the approval of the October 24th meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing for agenda items 2 and 3. Rezoning RZ 08249287, Plan Development Concept Plan, and PDC 08249288 for the links at Adams Point, with item number 4 held concurrently. At this time, I will ask for exhibits from our city attorney, James Newell.
The city would like to enter exhibits 1 through 9.
Thank you. All those that are here this evening that would like to speak in favor of or oppose this project, please stand to be sworn in as a group.
Raise your hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. At this time, I will ask for the presentation from city staff.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Mike Mallon, 903 West Main Street on behalf of the city, and I have been sworn. Before you this evening is a general development or a rezoning plan development concept plan and preliminary plat for property located north of the Adams Point Golf Course, south of R.D. Mize Road, and west of the Adams Point subdivision for the links at Adams Dairy. The property is surrounded or denoted here by the black and white dashed line. It is currently vacant, treed. The golf course surrounds it to the south and to the west. To the east is the Adams Point subdivision. To the north is the Amazon distribution facility, and R.D. Mize Road that takes you, turns into Coronado, takes you over to Adams Dairy Landing. Surrounding property zoning to the south is agricultural, to the east is SF7 PRO, ADPO, which is Adams Dairy Parkway Overlay, to the west is residential estate, and to the north is light industrial. The proposed zoning for the property is to be PDR, or Plan Development Residential / Adams Dairy Parkway Overlay. Total site encompasses about 18.47 acres. Zone out, or zoom out here. Come on. The proposed zoning again is for PD R, ADPO, and along with that is a PD concept plan. The PD concept plan calls for 37 single-family lots. The minimum lot size is 7,200 square feet. The minimum house size is 2,200 square feet. The proposed setbacks are included on the site data table and are based off of the SF's, or the single-family detached house neighborhood lot building type that is in the Unified Development Code, with one request for a modified setback for corner lots to make that 15 feet rather than 25 feet. which is pretty common in a lot of our planned developments throughout the city. There is two access points into the subdivision, one off of Coronado or Artie Mize Road that will provide the primary point of entrance, 2 cul-de-sacs, and then there is a road connection over to Adams Point Village. The comprehensive plan for the area, specifically the C2 area specific plan, called for small-scale multifamily, which would involve 2, 3, and 4-plex townhomes or walk-up apartments. This is a significantly less dense development proposal than what is contemplated in the concept plan or in the comprehensive plan. You may remember previously this site was proposed for an RV campground a few months ago. The preliminary plat and concept plan are essentially the same documents outlining the 37 lots with the minimum lot widths and lot dimensions. Proposed open space for the property. Here's the landscape plan that shows a buffer along the lots that directly abut the golf course. There will be fencing are fencing standards proposed that require lots that will be the lots will be directly adjacent to the golf course, so there's not a landscape tract back there. All of the landscape buffer will be provided in a landscape easement on the back of the property, and all of the fencing along the lots adjacent to the golf course will be open rail, wrought iron style fencing. So those are all included in the plan development. There's a buffer provided along Coronado Artie Mize for those lots as well. The open space, since the property is in the Adams Dairy Parkway overlay, the site is required to provide 15% open space, which is greater than the standard zoning. SF7 zoning would require 10%. They are required 15% or 2.30 acres. The applicant is providing 2.32 acres or 15.5% open space across 2 of the 5 tracts. There are 5 tracts of land included, tracts A to E. Only 2 of those are counted towards the open space system and includes tract A, which has a trail that runs back through here and up along that point, tract B as open space. Tract C would be landscaping, and then the other tracts are landscape buffers, and then tract E over here, which is a big rock ledge. I think the developer can speak to that a little bit more. It's not proposed for development. The proposed architecture includes contemporary design, compatible materials to the adjacent subdivision in Adams Point Village with a mix of 2- and 3-car garages. Again, the minimum livable floor area is 2,200 square feet, which is a 2-step down, I believe. Is that right, Dave? A step down of 2 from the adjacent subdivision over here in Adams Point Village. These original homes in Adams Point Village were the first ones built, and they had 2,600 square feet because they were adjacent to the golf course. And then as that subdivision in Adams Point Village moves away from that first row of homes, they step down rather quickly to 2,200, 2,000, 1,800, I think is the minimum over there in the smallest portion. This is a proposed step down greater than the 1 class, so that is a deviation they're requesting as part of the concept plan. Staff is supportive of that because 2,200 square feet is still a rather large size home, and that is a minimum livable floor area. I think the developer can speak to what the proposed actual square footage will be, and is appropriate for the houses that are backing up to Coronado and is compatible with the existing homes or the first homes built in Adams Point Village, were some of the largest homes we've seen built in using that classification system in the city. Some of the architectural styles that are proposed in the concept plan: variety of materials, high quality design, lots of windows, roof breaks. In particular, elevations that utilizing good architecture along the rear elevations, especially those that may back up to the golf course, to provide visual interest to those rather than some of the standard single-family homes that are just flat on the back. I think they're proposing quite a enhancement on those rear elevations, as you can see in these pictures. A walking trail, benches will be provided to help activate the open space in tracks A and B, and again, the fencing along the rear property lines for those adjacent to the golf course. The PD is proposing some alternative standards, as PDs are provided to do in the code. They're reducing the open space tract on the north side of the property to 15 feet. The corner lot building line from 25 to 15 feet, so that corner side setback that I mentioned. 25, what is the 25 foot requirement? What is that one? Oh, the buffer. Okay, so they're reducing the 25-foot buffer to a 15-foot buffer along, is that on our demise? Okay, on our demise. They're proposing a 15-foot landscape easement along all adjacent lots to the golf course, and which is a reduction in the buffer width. And the reason for that is that the developer does not want to provide that in a landscape tract that would be maintained and owned by the HOA, and to have the trail go through there, because carrying that cost over 37 lots is probably going to be too financially burdensome on those HOAs just for those to be able to maintain it. So what they've proposed is to do a landscape easement across the back of those properties, and then in lieu of that, adding 2 evergreen trees per lot in the landscape easement, in addition to their required landscaping that they're normally required for every single family house is 45 plant units. They're still gonna provide that, but then within the rear landscape easement of every single family home that backs up to the golf course, they're gonna put in 2 additional evergreen trees to help really enhance that buffer in the backyard. And that is the end of the plans. Staff reviewed the request for the PDR zoning, the PD concept plan, or the zoning to PDR/ADPO. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning, finding that it meets the overall intent and goals of the comprehensive plan, even though it doesn't match the land use perfectly. Staff feels that it is a compatible land use with the adjacent subdivision, and provides a desirable housing product in the city adjacent to the city's golf course. And so staff finds that it meets the intent of the comprehensive plan to provide attractive housing choices, that it's compatible with adjacent development, that there are planned services to the area where the city is able to provide services, and the infrastructure improvements are adequate to support the development. Staff believes that the modifications being requested as part of the PD concept plan help this development provide lot sizes and home sizes that are as compatible as can be, given the odd shape of the property and the terrain, and trying to fit houses in there, and to make those houses, the square footage of those houses, fit on those lots. Some of those reduced buffers and reduced setbacks really help make the houses, the emphasis on the house size, be able to fit on those lots. And so staff feels that some of those modifications are appropriate and therefore supports those. And staff recommends approval of the PD concept plan, and likewise approval of the preliminary plat. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions up here from staff?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mallon, my question for you is twofold. Were there any opposition letters, and was there a traffic study done?
There was not a traffic study done because of the number of units. The typical, and Adam, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the typical standard for requirements for a traffic study is the threshold is whether there's going to be 50 residential dwelling units or more. And if there's less than 50, then a traffic study is not required. And so with the 37 lots, staff is actually able to do kind of the analysis of that without a full-blown traffic study. There were a few letters of opposition, maybe a strong word, but of concerned residents that emailed not just city staff, there are some included in the packet, and there are a number that were sent to city council members, which were forwarded onto for the city council public hearing. Most of those had a general sense of being in support of the project, especially the single-family home component, the size of the houses and the size of the lots were all supported. The main concern that they had was this road connecting through from at the Adams Point subdivision into this development. As you can see in the aerial photograph, when the Adams Point Village subdivision was originally constructed, there, per code, stub streets are provided to provide for future connectivity between subdivisions. As you can see throughout almost every subdivision in the city, where the appropriate streets are to connect to the next door neighbor. It's a code requirement to connect streets and to connect neighborhoods. So Adams Point Village actually has 3 connections. Pavilion Drive, sorry, connects south into what was recently approved, the Ironwood project. There is another connection of Amanda Lane over to the east to property that is currently not annexed, as in not within the city limits. And there was a stub street connection provided and right-of-way provided to connect to a future subdivision on this property. This neighborhood has provided that connection at the request of staff because the code requires it. And so that is what is being shown before you this evening. The code only allows for that connection to not be made if the city council determines that it is unwarranted or unnecessary. And so the developer has requested to not do that. That plan is not being shown to you tonight because staff and the planning commission do not have that authority specified under the code to not require that connection. But I believe it is something that the developer will be asking of the city council is to not make that connection so as to help with the compatibility of the adjacent neighborhood, and given the fact that there really isn't too far of a drive from this primary entrance point off of Ardimont or Coronado, from this entrance to come out to Coronado and then into the main entrance over in Adams Point Village is only a couple hundred feet to go from here over to here. And so due to the residents in the surrounding area not necessarily wanting that street to connect, but also, and I think the developer can speak to this too, in this area here, there's quite a large drainage ditch that comes through, drainage way that comes through here, and they would have to build a box culvert and a bridge essentially to cross over that, which is a large expense, which to put on the development of only 37 or 30 lots may make those lot prices too high and inhibit the development of the subdivision.
Will they be providing sidewalks or anything?
Sidewalks will be provided throughout the development on one side of the street. At this time, we have not seen a alternative plan to see if there would be a trail or a pedestrian connection made over to the Adams Point Village subdivision, but it's something that staff could review if an alternative plan is provided.
Thank you.
Would you touch base again on the landscape easement for the lots that abut the golf course?
Yes.
In regards to how wide it is that's my question, please.
So typically, what the code requires is a buffer, a landscape buffer from a single-family neighborhood to an adjacent land use, and it's based upon zoning. And the zoning of the property is agricultural, and so there is no buffer identified in our code for that. However, there's another section of the code that says where a single-family home subdivision abuts a public recreation facility, that there should be a buffer type, what was it, B, which is what, 25 feet or 15 feet, one of the two. And so staff worked with the applicant and utilized the previously, the most recent project that was brought before you, which was Ironwood. And Ironwood did not provide a landscape buffer or tract adjacent to the golf course. And so in working on this site, on Ironwood, which is a separate project, the amount of green space that is actually part of the golf course, which you can see here. So the Ironwood subdivision bordered the golf course in this area here, and this is a 20 to 30, sometimes up to 40-foot deep tree line. And so during that review, staff didn't feel that that landscape buffer was necessary. The property in question here, along this property line, does not have that same tree buffer. And so, even though our code doesn't necessarily require a buffer because of the adjacent zoning, but also bringing in the provision that says it's next to a public recreation facility, which a golf course is arguably, but it's more of an open concept recreation facility. Staff worked with the applicant to come up with, rather than putting it in a tract that would be maintained and owned by the HOA, and to put a trail back there, that it is desirable to have homes in certain parts, the backing up to the golf course. And so staff, the developer would like to have the fences go all the way to the property line. And so staff worked with them to increase the amount of landscaping within that back area where there would normally be a tract. We're gonna put that in a landscape easement and then have them add additional landscaping in there.
What benefit does the landscape easement provide for the city, or perhaps protection of the golf course, which I'm assuming is why staff is recommending the landscape easement versus a buffer?
What it does is it ensures that the additional landscaping will be installed when the development is, and with each home that is built.
Okay.
Now, over time, that buffer may change. Some of those residents may choose to put up more trees. Unfortunately, sometimes they choose to take down trees. But what it ensures is that at the time of development, that 2 additional evergreens will be built within that easement, and there's already a code requirement for a tree in the backyard. So at a minimum, there will be 3 trees that one, is it an ornamental or a shade? What's the tree that goes in the backyard? Shade. It's a shade tree normally. So there'll be at a minimum 3 trees in the back of each lot adjacent to the golf course. And so what the buffer would normally require is 1 tree every 40 feet. And so given the lot widths, we're actually getting more trees in the buffer than we would normally if we had followed the buffer requirements.
So the easement, you're suggesting the easement for compliance of the 2 additional evergreens, not necessarily for any further ongoing rights or access to the easement by the city, correct?
Right.
Okay.
The landscape easement will not be dedicated to the city.
Okay.
What it will say typically in the plat language is that a landscape easement is hereby dedicated, and no structures or anything can be built in it other than fencing. So it will protect that rear 15 feet from having any sheds or accessory structures or other things that typically can be built in the rear of a single-family house or lot from being within that landscape easement. So there will be a 15-foot clear area other than just those side property fences and the rear property fence that will be left open at the rear of all of those lots.
I think that does it for my questions. Any other questions from any other commissioners for staff before we hear from the applicant? Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Would the applicant like to come and speak on behalf of the project?
Chad Reisinger, 114 Southwest Eagles Parkway in Green Valley, Missouri. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to show you the links at Adams Point. Really, staff did a great job of explaining in detail what we'd like to do, and so I'll just introduce myself. I'm born and raised in Blue Springs, and builder, single-family homes, and mostly in Green Valley. I've done commercial remodeling all over Kansas City and some commercial development in Green Valley. I built some storage units there, built and developed and owned the storage units there. So looking to kind of come back to Blue Springs and do a project, and just really love this 18 acres. So second time up here to do something, and I really like this plan. It's a kind of an exclusive kind of niche kind of place that backs up to the beautiful golf course there. So with that, I could answer any questions you might have.
Any questions before we hear from the public? Thank you, Chad.
All right, thanks.
Anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the project? Anybody in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to this project? The public comment section of this public hearing is over. Any further discussion from staff?
Yeah, with this image up, I would just like to point out that I did mention the reduced buffer along RD Mize from 25 feet to 15 feet. That 25 feet is based upon the adjacent zoning. Because of Amazon rezoned and all of RD Mize the RD Mize right of way is included in was included in the Amazon zoning. All of that roadway, which comes down to this line here, is zoned light industrial, and so it requires a 25-foot buffer width. But as you can see, the amount of actual green space due to the curvature of the road and the actual right-of-way needed for where RD Mize would connect, and the width of future RD Mize, because essentially the road dead ends into the golf course. It would just be a local road, and so there's ample right-of-way, and so staff felt that that 15 feet was appropriate, and the developer may come back at a later time and request a vacation of that to actually further increase that buffer. But at this time, in order to help this project get through, they've asked for a reduced buffer in that area, and staff is supportive of that given the eventual roadway width needed, the fact that even though it is zoned light industrial, it will never be used for light industrial, so that buffer is really not protecting it from an industrial property, and even all of the Amazon uses on that property are significantly further north, and there's quite a buffer provided at the Amazon facility. So I just wanted to point that out, and it reminded me when I had this drawing up. So
That makes sense. Thank you, Mike. Any discussion from commissioners? I have one point I'd like to make is that while it's great to have applicants from throughout the state and other parts of the country, I thank you and commend you for bringing the RV project that subsequently did not get passed and coming back and bringing another, what appears to be a good-looking project on your land. So thank you for that. Final question for the applicant. Is this something that, are you gonna build all the lots, or are you gonna open it up?
So yeah, we do plan on opening it up a little bit.
Okay.
And I'll actually build a house in there too.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? I will close this public hearing. And at this time, I would ask for a motion for the rezoning portion with 6 conditions pursuant to staff's report.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd move to approve rezoning RZ 08249287 the links.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second? Could I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Stokenberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Graham,
Aye.
Commissioner Pumphrey,
Aye.
Chairperson Henning.
Aye. This motion carried and will be recommended and heard by the City Council at their next meeting on Monday, November 4th, 2024. Moving on for the Planned Development Concept Plan, I would entertain a motion.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd move to approve Plan Development Concept Plan PDC 08249288 the links with the 6 staff conditions.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Can I get another roll call, please?
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Graham,
Aye.
Commissioner Pumphrey,
Aye.
Commissioner Stokenberry,
Aye.
Chairperson Henning.
Aye. This motion carried with 6 conditions, and the final item, I would ask for a motion for the preliminary plat.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
move to approve preliminary plat PP 08249289 the links with the 5 staff conditions.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. That motion carried. That moves on from the business at hand. Does staff have any other business?
No, we haven't.
What about commissioners? Anything? Down below? Anybody down there? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good evening and thank you very much.